Hello, everyone. Welcome to Celsius 233, your go-to place for fiction book summaries. Today, we will turn the pages of Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. Sense and Sensibility, written by Jane Austen, was first published in 1811. It is Jane Austen's first published novel. It follows the lives and romantic trials of the Dashwood sisters, Elinor and Marianne, as they navigate the tension between sense, practicality, and sensibility emotion in their relationships and family life. Set in the backdrop of Regency England, the novel explores issues of love, inheritance, societal expectations, and the financial and emotional vulnerability of women. Plot summary. The Dashwood family had long been established in Sussex, residing at Norland Park. This large estate had been home to several generations of respectable Dashwoods, earning them the good opinion of their neighbors. The latest owner, an elderly bachelor, had lived there with his sister until her death. Following her demise, he invited his nephew, Henry Dashwood, and his family to live with him, intending to bequeath the estate to Henry upon his own death. Henry Dashwood had one son, John, from a previous marriage, and three daughters, Elinor, Marianne, and Margaret, with his current wife. Although John was well provided for through his mother's inheritance, the same could not be said for the Dashwood daughters. Their future prospects heavily relied on their father inheriting Norland Park. However, the old bachelor's will, while not disinheriting Henry, tied the estate to John's young son, leaving Henry powerless to provide for his daughters and wife. After Henry's sudden death, John Dashwood's promise to his father to look after his half-sisters was quickly overshadowed by his wife, Fanny's, influence. She persuaded John to limit any financial help to mere gestures. The Dashwood women are left with a modest income and are forced to leave their beloved home, Norland Park. As a result, Mrs. Dashwood and her daughters were left in a precarious position. Feeling unwelcome in their own home, they accepted the invitation of a distant relative, Sir John Middleton, to move to Barton Cottage in Devonshire. Though the cottage is much humbler than their previous residence, they are welcomed warmly by Sir John and his mother-in-law, Mrs. Jennings. Sir John is jovial and friendly, constantly arranging social gatherings, while Mrs. Jennings delights in matchmaking and gossip. Despite their reduced circumstances, the Dashwoods settle in and try to find comfort in their new life. Elinor, the eldest sister, is reserved and practical, embodying sense. She is in love with Edward Ferrars, Fanny Dashwood's brother, who had visited Norland before their move. Edward is quiet and kind, and Elinor believes their affection is mutual, though his behavior is marked by a certain hesitation. Their future together, however, seems uncertain due to Edward's lack of financial independence and the disapproval of his domineering mother, who expects him to make a wealthy match. Marianne, in contrast to Elinor, embodies sensibility with her passionate and impulsive nature. Soon after settling at Barton, Marianne meets the dashing and charming John Willoughby. The two share a love of poetry and nature, and their romance blossoms rapidly. Willoughby's ardent attentions captivate Marianne, and she openly displays her feelings. It appears that they are deeply in love and on the verge of engagement, but without warning, Willoughby departs for London, leaving Marianne heartbroken and confused. He offers no explanation for his sudden departure, fueling Marianne's despair. As Marianne grieves for Willoughby, Colonel Brandon, a friend of Sir John's, quietly admires her from afar. A man of quiet dignity and steadfastness, Brandon is much older than Marianne, and his affection for her goes unnoticed, especially given Marianne's romantic ideals. Colonel Brandon is not as charismatic as Willoughby, but his devotion and honorable nature soon reveal him to be the more reliable man. Meanwhile, Elinor's quiet suffering continues as she learns that Edward Ferrars has been secretly engaged for several years to Lucy Steele, a young woman of no fortune or distinction. Elinor is devastated by the news, but her sense of duty and self-control prevents her from revealing her heartbreak. Lucy takes pleasure in confiding her secret engagement to Elinor, who, despite her anguish, listens and comforts her. Elinor's emotional restraint is a source of strength, but it also isolates her, as she cannot share her feelings even with her closest family members. When Mrs. Jennings invites both Elinor and Marianne to London, Marianne is eager to reunite with Willoughby, whom she believes will propose. However, upon their arrival, Marianne encounters a much-changed Willoughby. At a party, he greets her coldly, barely acknowledging her presence. Soon after, Marianne learns that Willoughby is engaged to a wealthy heiress, Miss Grey. The revelation shatters Marianne, and she falls into deep despair, suffering both physically and emotionally. Willoughby's abandonment reveals him to be a fortune hunter, choosing wealth over love, and leaving Marianne to grapple with the harsh realities of love and betrayal. In London, Elinor faces her own challenges as Lucy Steele reveals that her engagement to Edward has come to light. Mrs. Ferrars, Edward's formidable mother, disowns him for refusing to break off the engagement to Lucy. Despite his mother's wishes and the potential loss of his inheritance, Edward chooses to honor his promise to Lucy, further deepening Elinor's private agony. In the midst of this turmoil, Colonel Brandon offers Edward a modest living as a clergyman, showcasing his generous and compassionate nature. Marianne, weakened by her emotional distress, falls gravely ill. The Dashwood family fears for her life, but with the care of her family and the steadfast presence of Colonel Brandon, she slowly recovers. Marianne's brush with death brings about a change in her outlook. She begins to see the value of moderation and self-control, recognizing that her unchecked emotions nearly destroyed her. Marianne no longer idealizes passion at the expense of reason and starts to appreciate Colonel Brandon's quiet, enduring love. Elinor's patience and endurance are finally rewarded when Lucy Steele, in a surprising turn of events, jilts Edward for his wealthier brother, Robert Ferrars. With his engagement to Lucy broken, Edward is free to declare his love for Elinor. Though they both have endured great trials, Elinor and Edward are reunited and find happiness together, proving that true love can endure through hardship and time. Marianne, though initially reluctant, gradually grows to love Colonel Brandon, whose constancy and kindness win her over. She marries him, finding contentment not in the fiery passion she once sought, but in a deeper, steadier affection. In the end, both sisters find happiness, Elinor with Edward and Marianne with Colonel Brandon, after learning the importance of balancing sense and sensibility in their lives. The novel concludes with the Dashwood family settled into a more stable and fulfilling life, enriched by their trials and the love they have found. That's all for now, but if this book spoke to you, Jane Austen has more waiting for you. Find them in the description or on Celsius 233. Remember, while our summaries capture the essence, they can never replace the full experience of reading the book. If this summary intrigued you, consider diving into the complete story, buy the book, and immerse yourself in Jane Austen's original work. Bye-bye, take care, have fun.